AM 1220 KHTS, your hometown station. I'm here today as part of the Providence Holy Cross Hour. Normally, I'm your afternoon tea with you during drive time, 3 to 7, but today it's my tremendous pleasure to be talking to Dr. Antebi, who's here with Providence Holy Cross. He's an orthopedic surgeon, board-certified orthopedic trauma surgeon, and we've been talking a lot about hip replacement, and in particular, something that he is very good at, the anterior hip replacement, which for some patients is shorter recovery time. It's a much better outcome than traditional. But doctor, you also do. I mean, orthopedic surgeons. When I think of you guys, immediately I'm thinking trauma, sports injuries, degenerative, infection, all the things that you take care of. Walk me through a few of the other things that you do besides this really remarkable anterior hip replacement procedure.
Sure. So when I moved here approximately 10 years ago, started my own practice. I was trained in orthopedic trauma, meaning taking care of people with traumatized joints, bones, fractures. So I take call, orthopedic trauma call at 4 different hospitals. I take call at Holy Cross, Antelope Valley Hospital, Palmdale Hospital, as well as Henry Mayo. So when I'm on call, I go to various emergency rooms, and they call me when somebody comes in with a really, really bad injury. Sometimes it could just be splinted by the ER doctor, and then they would see me as an outpatient. But I do a lot of the difficult cases. So one of the things that I'm known around in town here is if an orthopedic surgeon is on call and there's a really bad injury that is beyond the scope of his capability, then they would call me and I would take over the case. And a lot of these are patients that, for example, there's a kid that we took care of a few days ago who rolled a quad over his arm and nearly amputated his arm. He's 17 years old, right below the elbow. And this is a gentleman that just a horrible, devastating, life-altering injury. And we're still trying to save the arm. One surgeon wanted to basically amputate it. So these are really, really difficult injuries to deal with.
And I have to believe, I said earlier, being in Southern California, where the sun shines most of the year and people are outside doing a lot of activities and a lot of motorized activities, especially out in the desert areas where people are riding motorized vehicles. Is that like probably the main injuries that come to you?
Well, I mean, it's we have the people who love motorcycles are huge here, whether it's a dirt bike or a motorcycle. On a Saturday or Sunday, we have all these rallies and people are riding their motocycles, and I do that 10, 20 times a month. People who fall off of motorcycles.
These are people who need to discover brunch, doctor. They need to stop being on the motorized vehicles.
Motorcycles are great. They give people an escape, and they get to dress up in their leathers,
but
and they may be doctors.
Risk.
And there's absolute risk.
A huge risk.
And most of the time, it's not even them. It's the other people who don't watch out for them. And because usually motorcycle riders are fairly safe riders because they know the potential hazards. But a lot of times when a 3,000-pound car is coming your way and you can't stop, things like that happen all the time. The other thing is we get riders in the Antelope Valley from everywhere. People come from all over Southern California because of the allowance of them being able to ride there. You can't ride hardly in anywhere else in Los Angeles County. So Orange County. So they come up to the desert and they just go crazy up there, and a percentage of those people will get hurt, and they end up, unfortunately, in the emergency room at Antelope Valley Hospital, which is one of the second busiest emergency room in Los Angeles County, second to like USC.
Wow.
It's busy.
So now, in addition to seeing these sport injuries, what about with the younger crowd? Like we had talked a little bit about fractures in young.
Sure. So I taking care of a fracture. I see people all the way from 1 or 2 years old all the way to the end of life. Grandma fell down, broke her hip. I probably do about 200 hip fractures a year in older people who just tripped over a carpet or just a ground level fall. From what I understand, I'm not 100% certain, but I don't think there are many or any orthopedic surgeons who treat pediatric fractures in Santa Clarita Valley, and I do. I love seeing kids. I was going to say,
you're that guy.
Yeah, I love seeing kids. I mean, kids, they're great because they rarely need surgery. Most of the time, they heal fine. I just saw a gentleman, a kid, 6 years old, in my office earlier this morning, who had an injury. He went to the emergency room, and he had a dislocation of his elbow, and he's doing great. I mean, I see kids all the time.
Now, how do you deal with fear? I'm curious. I mentioned to you during the break, I once dislocated my kneecap, went in and was the biggest chicken ever, old enough to know better, because the doctor said to me, "Why are you acting this way?" And I said, "I know, I'm old enough to know." I didn't want to have the knee drain. How do you deal with a patient's fear when they first come to you? Do you have like a magic trick?
You have to kind of feel the patient out. Sometimes I feel I'm an orthopedic surgeon / psychiatrist / psychologist. So you kind of have to feel the patient and see.
Because you see a lot of pain.
We see a lot of pain and a lot of personalities, and everybody deals with pain differently. Some people are like, "Yeah, do what you got to do, doc," and some people are like, "You're not sticking that needle in my knee. It's not happening." Right. So if that's the case, and if the effusion or the swelling of the knee doesn't get better, you'll come back. It's not an emergency that we have to do it. I'm here to offer you some pain relief. And a lot of times by removing the fluid, it lessens the swelling in the knee and the distension of the knee and will cause pain, will allow for pain relief.
So you communicate as opposed to just coming in and doing the job.
I'm a big communicator.
And sometimes that's really difficult. I mean, I can tell you myself as a patient, if you're not talking me through what's about to happen, and that sometimes is the greatest fear of all, because I don't know what to expect.
Well,
so that's...
I think that's my biggest advantage, is I really talk to patients, let them know what's going on. I use models in the office because I'm a very visual guy, and I like to show people exactly what is wrong with them. What is arthritis? What does it look like? Here's what your joint looks like on a model, and I show them exactly what's going on.
That takes away a lot of fear for a patient. When we come back from the break, we're going to let people know how to get in touch with you. Again, I'm talking with Dr. Antebi, board-certified orthopedic trauma surgeon, here as part of the Providence Holy Cross Hour. I am T. This is AM 1220 KHTS, your hometown station. AM 1220 KHTS, hometown station. I am T. Normally with you Monday through Friday, 3 to 7 in your afternoon drive. But today I get to be part of the Providence Holy Cross Hour. Truly my great, great pleasure talking with Dr. Antebi, who's here, board-certified orthopedic trauma surgeon. We've discussed a lot about the anterior hip replacement, which is something that people who are candidates for it is probably the best surgical procedure to do for a hip replacement. Every patient is different. We've talked about your dealing with sports injuries and fractures, and especially dealing with young patients. One of the few doctors who do this. If someone is currently experiencing pain in the hip, in the knee, and they're looking for the good orthopedic doc, that's you, I have to believe. What are the best ways they can get a hold of you?
Well, I'm in the office I have a couple of offices, one here in Valencia and also one in Lancaster. The best number to reach the Lancaster office is 661-726-5005. The Valencia office is 661-705-5101. Or go to my web address. It's www.antebiortho.com. And Antebi is spelled ANTEBIORTHO.com.
Now, the doctor who tended to you when you were a young man, did you ever stay in touch with him, just out of curiosity?
Actually, I did. So when I started medical school in South Florida, during the weekends or time that I had off, I called him and I asked him if I can shadow him and spend some time with him. And that's what really kind of catapulted me into wanting to go into this field.
Now, I'm just curious, did he have the opportunity to watch you go throughout your studies and through your career? Is this someone who's followed you all through your work?
It's more like me, kind of keeping in touch with him, sending him an email maybe once a year, letting him know how I'm doing, letting him know how he's inspired me. And because of that, I see tons of students who want to shadow me, and every time my office manager says, "Hey, we have a high school student who's interested in you because you treated them or they heard about you," and I always say yes. They come to the operating room with me, and I accept medical students who rotate with me as well. So I'm always happy to give back, because I think most young people, they need somebody to look up to.
And the idea that you had a mentor who not only touched you mentally to where you thought, oh, this is a really pretty groovy, cool opportunity for me when I grew up, he also touched your heart, and he's sort of been, I would imagine, a little bit over your shoulder. And the idea that you want to be that same kind of mentor, I think, is so lovely, because in life, it's not a story I hear all of the time, but the people who are very, very passionate about what they do, who are very giving in what they do, typically had that story in their background where there was someone. That's why I asked if you had a family member.
Sure.
But the idea that this gentleman was that person
well,
for you.
let's be real here. So most today's kids are, they want to be the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryants of the world, and the reality is that's not going to happen. That's reality. But what is true is that if you do find a professional, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer, a nurse, or whatever it is, and they inspire you, that is an achievable goal. I came here from another country. English is my third language. My parents were uneducated, and here I am living the American dream.
And that's to me. Those every career you just mentioned, those are the real superheroes. I always wonder why we don't have more comic books written about you guys. I have a question about your. When in school, in addition to having that great mentor, was there ever a professor or someone who you just said to yourself, "Oh, this guy is really breathing down my neck," or "This woman is just really on my last nerve, but I'm going to show them"? Was there like a teacher who also pushed that button?
I still remember her name. So I was in 11th grade, and I decided to take an anatomy class, and it just so happened that this particular teacher, she, for whatever reason, she loved the bones. I don't know why. So one of our tests would be she would lay a bone. We had like 50 stations in the classroom, and she would lay a particular bone on the station and not just name the bone, but you had to name the part of the bone or the process of the bone. And that teacher drove me to be crazy, and I loved her for it. I still remember her, and it's probably why I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I don't know. I mean, it's really, really. When you mention that, when I think of her, I'm like, definitely
you go right back in that moment.
Absolutely.
Again, this is the Providence Holy Cross Hour. We're talking with Dr. Antebi, board-certified orthopedic trauma surgeon. You can find his website at antebiortho.com, ANTEBI ortho.com. He has an office in Valencia. That number is 661-705-5101, and an office in Lancaster, 661-726-5005. Dr. Antebi, thank you so much for being here today, and I look forward to chatting with you again in the future about everything that you do. Sounds incredibly fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you very much.